Has anybody seen me speak before? A few people. Anybody wondering why there's that little logo in the bottom after having seen me speak before? I've changed roles. After 18 years, more or less, of working in the IT industry on the IT department side, in March, I went to the dark side and I joined Microsoft. Dark side is just the other side of the IT industry, generally, not just us. My new role is heading up a team of technology evangelists in a group which is called Developer and Platform Evangelism. We are tasked with helping people in the IT industry to understand and embrace, hopefully, the technologies that Microsoft have today and going forward. How that translates is me and my colleagues and my peers appearing at events like this. We also have a number of channels to market. I'm learning marketing speak as we go here as well. So MSDN and TechNet, which are the sort of more traditional ones. Ubelly, which is I can't remember what they call it, but basically they tried to make it not feel like Microsoft so that people who generally don't develop using Microsoft technologies can relate to it. And then also we've got some really interesting stuff like Microsoft BizSpark, which is run out of the DPE team, and that's about helping startups and providing technology for startups and support for startups. And there's like 2,000 companies or something who've gone through that program. What I'm going to talk about after Dave has spoken for a while is some research that DPE organised in the first quarter of this year, and that was looking at, I guess, feelings, attitudes and so on amongst the IT community, not at the CIO level, but the kind of everybody else level. So following on from Thomas's information from the research, it's interesting to see where the kind of rank and file in IT's minds are at with this stuff, and we'll cover that in a bit. Just to set the scene a bit for this, though, I was in discussion a few weeks ago with Charlene, who is running the UK Cloud Power marketing campaign, which you may have seen some posters around for. I know Waterloo Station for about a month was covered with the things. And I was chatting to her about what we should talk about within this presentation. And Charlene's probably, I don't know, 10 years younger than me. She's younger than me. And I was chatting to her about when I first started working, and I started working at KPMG back in 1993, and I was given an email account, but my email account was something on CCmail which enabled me to communicate with people within KPMG, within the UK business and further afield. Only very special people were allowed internet email. And I think most of it then was still done on X400 addresses, which is something I've never understood. And Charlene looked at me at this, and there was this kind of, in her face. She couldn't understand how everybody in an organisation would be given email addresses, but they wouldn't be able to access outside of the organisation. But back in 1993, this made perfect sense from an IT management perspective, because you don't want to have, you know, stuff going between companies. There's a terrible security risk, and all sorts of things could come from it. And of course, they were kind of right. But that divide of organisations, which only 18 years ago, 18 years I've been working, it seems a bit odd now, doesn't it? That's how stuff changes. If we look back, actually, we've been through lots of changes already. Introduce Dave. He's just going to talk a bit then about some of the things that he's seeing today, I guess.
Today, tomorrow, yesterday, doesn't matter. I'll make it all up. Thanks, Matt. So, I'm Dave. I'm the token long-haired, bearded, not sandal-wearing today, hippie, to talk to you about the consumer side of technology. Why the hell am I talking about consumer side of technology? Because I believe so much that consumers are going to drive our enterprise IT business, that after 20 years of enterprise IT in my career, I actually joined the consumer side of Microsoft to see what it was really like and to see if all of the sunshine I'd been talking about was actually going to come true. So here's what I found out. So first of all, this is yet another cloud conference. How many of you have been to a cloud conference or cloud discussion before? Hands in the air. Excellent. So Like all good cloud conferences, I'm going to guess that you're going to see lots of slides with lots of fluffy white clouds talking about the future and how it's all going to change. The problem for me with all of these conversations is that we tend to start with cloud. And starting a conversation with cloud is a bit like standing up at the beginning of the movie and saying, Bruce Willis is a ghost. You know, ultimately, that's the point, that's the destination that we're going to reach. But without all of the context, without all of the color around the story, you lose all of the value, you lose all of the understanding of why that might be important. So my job here today is actually to give you some of that color, to give you some of the context about why cloud is really important, and not just from a return on investment financial perspective, but why it's important to the people that work with you, the people, whether it's your customers, your employees, and the things that you do every day. Last year, we launched a survey, a study called the Hybrid Organization, and unlike most technology company case studies and surveys, this was actually a proper one. We got real people, grown-ups in their industry, and rather than a survey that says, here's a big lofty business problem, and the solution is SharePoint, Google Docs, insert technology product name here, we actually wanted to think about it differently. So we got a leading sociologist in the UK, a guy called Professor Michael Hume from the University of Lancaster. We got a guy called Philip Ross, who, to call him an architect does him a disservice. He does a lot of work around how the built environment, how office space is changing in the future. And we got some very knowledgeable people from Microsoft and me to write a technology paper about how technology is changing. Now, the interesting thing is, in these 3 white papers, in each one, there was a really compelling story for change. But what happens when you superimpose the 3 together, you end up with this absolutely revelationary view of how the world is changing around us, and how we, in the IT industry, if we don't understand that, we're going to really struggle to be relevant with the people that we're here to provide service for. No conversation about cloud would be complete without talking about the economy. I'm not going to give you the usual spiel about the economy. Yeah, we all know we need to do more for less, blah, 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 blah. The important thing to understand is that the economy will give us the biggest driver to make the transformation we've been dreaming about in enterprise IT for years. Many of the customers that I talk to will say, you know what, it's a real pain in the backside that we've got to save a bunch of money and we're cutting service. But then the really switched on ones will have a little twinkle in their eye and they'll say, well, you know what, this is great, because finally I've got a chance to make some real substantive business change. I'm going to change the way that we do business rather than just tweaking around with the operational stuff. So think about the economy as a positive thing in your business. Help it drive forward the things that you know are right in your organization. So we're going to park the economy and we're going to look at some of I guess the data points that this report, the Hybrid Organization, exposed. The first thing is, and you'll see throughout my presentation that it is basically an exercise in mass stereotyping and generalizations. So I love my job. This is a snapshot of the UK workforce, right? It's a couple of years old, but give or take, it's roughly right. There are 3 kinds of generation in the workforce today. Interesting, you say, but not quite as interesting as the fact that in the wings, there are 9 million millennials, people who've grown up with technology, not like most of us, where technology was something special that you only saw at work or in a place of study. These are people who think of technology as just a natural part of everyday life. And as they slowly join the workforce over the next 10 years, there is going to be a massive change. There's going to be a fundamental shift in how people think about technology. Not just in the younger generation, but that change drives change in the older generations. And I'll give you an example from a company that Matt referenced earlier and knows well. I used to work for KPMG, funnily enough, and I remember a senior partner who was your stereotypical senior partner. He used to come into the office in the morning. His admin team would print out all of his X.500 emails. He would then go into his office and he would manually annotate all of his replies. They would then go back to the admin people, who would then dutifully type them up and send them from his mailbox. Fantastic, excellent use of technology. Now, fair enough, this was 10 years ago. That same guy today is knocking on the CIO's door saying, how come I go home to better technology than you give me at work? How come I can IM my son who's at college on the other side of the country, and I can't even do that with the stuff that you give me? Now, his experience of technology has changed, not because his workforce, his workplace has changed that, but his personal experience has changed. Because he's got kids, it's changed. And so don't think about this stuff being about young people. All of our interactions with technology is changing every day as it becomes more and more pervasive in the things that we do. So moving forward to the built environment, one of the things that the report showed up is that on average, knowledge workers spend 45% of their time at their desk. 45%. So the astute financial experts amongst you will be saying, hang on a minute, that means that in theory, 55% of office space is wasted. Well, even if you don't go to that far of an extreme, what you realise is that people are spending less time at their desk and more time collaborating with other people. So there's a saving to be made there. You don't have to take the 55%, but you could take a bigger slice. Maybe you don't need all the office space that you need, that you have today. We did this with our Dutch office. We reduced the size of the office by 30%, which effectively pushed all of our people out into the big bad world. They couldn't stay in the safe cocoon of the Microsoft building with free coffee and lovely other fluffy seats and things like that. They had to go and do things like spend time with our customers, be with our partners, work with people in our industry. And guess what happened? Our sales went up 50%. Not specifically as a result of that, but because we were more engaged, because it changed the way that people worked. And so be thoughtful about your office space. We're looking, we used to talk, when it was all about unified comms, we used to talk about the death of the desk phone. Philip Ross talks about the death of the desk. Why is it that we go to a specific place at a specific time of day? I live in the Midlands, I commute to London, and I stand there sometimes in the morning at Euston about 9 o'clock. And I just look at this wave of people coming in to be in a specific place for a specific period of time. Really? How mad is that? Now, I'm not saying that some people don't have to be in a specific place, but many of our knowledge workers don't. So why is it we do that? Think about the environmental impact. Think about the financial impact. What happens if you change the way that people work? So what we're seeing is that work is ceasing to be a destination, but increasingly it's being an activity. So think about people. Microsoft provides using, whether it's a smartphone, a tablet device, even a laptop computer. How much do you actually care about the technology that makes that work? In the old days, we used to care a lot. These days, normal human beings really couldn't give a stuff. Trust me, I asked my wife, she couldn't give a stuff how it works. It's a bit like saying, when I get into the car, do I sit there putting the key in and thinking, at this moment, the precise amount of fuel is being injected into a certain area would be... No, you don't think about that. You get in your car, you turn the ignition, and off you go to wherever it is that you're going. Technology is no different. And the problem is, in the IT industry, is that we've spent a lot of time thinking about how important and special technology is. We still want to tell the world about that. But if we're spending time inside our organizations debating how email works or how the directory service works, we're actually not spending time thinking about how do we make our business the best in its industry? How do we transform the way that our business works? So it's about commoditization of technology as well. It's about pushing stuff below the waterline that is a commodity that we don't need to worry about. We also have a very different experience of technology at home. This might be a tough crowd to gauge this, but I'll ask anyway. How many of you, put your hands up, if you have a computer at home that is better than the one that you get at work? So more recent software, faster, right, okay. So about 90% of you. And what you think the people in your company are any different to that. So we as individuals are living this rich technical life. And yeah, it's a spectrum. Some people are at the far end and they're on Twitter and they're Facebooking their friends. But normal human beings are also shopping at Amazon, buying stuff from Tesco's, maybe looking at stuff on the BBC and doing stuff with Twitter in that sort of sense. So my point is we have this really rich, beautiful technical experience in our personal lives, and then we go into the office. And typically, this is what happens. Organizations still have this concept of the dumb user.